Welcome to Pod Save America. I'm Jon Favreau.
I'm Dan Pfeiffer.
Here in L.A.
In
a Dan
studio.
Pfeiffer appearance. We love it. We love it. And we have Elijah here. We have Dan and Elijah in person, which means we're going to play Take Appreciator later.
And it could get heated.
But first, President Biden gets no starburst from Speaker McCarthy during their first White House meeting. That's the headline. George Santos steps down from his committees. Wisconsin gears up for America's most important election of 2023. New polling shows Ron DeSantis trouncing Donald Trump, even in a crowded field. Exciting. All right. Just going to do this every day for 20... lot of episodes in 2023 about this primary. All right, let's get to the news. On Wednesday, President Biden and Speaker McCarthy held their first meeting on the debt ceiling. The White House said the president would ask our Kevin, he's our Kevin now, two questions. One, does he agree with leaders Schumer, Jeffries, and McConnell that the United States should never default on its debt? And when will House Republicans release their budget? McCarthy responded through Punch Bowl, as one does. Saying he does believe the debt limit needs to be lifted, saying that he does believe the debt ceiling needs to be lifted, though not without cutting spending, and that Republicans will be releasing a budget about a month after Biden. Meanwhile, McCarthy's goal was to get Biden to agree that he'd pay an unspecified ransom to House Republicans if they'll stop holding the entire economy hostage. The president did not take him up on that offer, and McCarthy refused once again to specify the ransom when he spoke to reporters outside the White House after the meeting. Here's a clip.
Where should those budget cuts come from right now? Medicare and Social Security, the White House insists Republicans want to cut. What cuts do you want?
Well, let me be clear about that, and I've been clear many times. No, we're not talking about that. And to really be able to do this right, I'm not going to negotiate this in the press, right? I respect the conversation we had together, and we will continue that.
So from everything we've heard from the meeting, anything surprise you?
Like you, I was disappointed that Kevin McCarthy did not arrive with some curated candies for President Biden, as he would do for Donald Trump.
I know. Even if he just gave him the yellows.
Are the yellows good? Do you like the
No,
yellows?
they're terrible.
You hate the lemons?
Yeah, I'm not a lemon fan, nor am I an orange fan. Pink and red. I guess I'm like Donald Trump.
You, in so many ways, my friend. In so
many
ways.
Elijah's going to clip that. Shit. Yeah, it didn't seem like any surprises.
I was surprised it was a 90-minute meeting.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it was a long meeting where very little was discussed and nothing was decided.
I'm sure Joe Biden told him a lot of stories.
That's the one thing they did say happened.
Did
They
it really?
say that McCarthy and Biden said that a lot of stories were shared in the meeting.
I'm sure it was very congenial.
Absolutely. It's the kind of meeting Joe Biden has. He's a
Well,
congenial
also,
guy.
if you're going to sit with someone for 90 minutes with no deadline coming up, I don't see why,
I mean, if you added up all of the meetings that Barack Obama and Mitch McConnell had over the course of 8 years, I don't think it got to 90 minutes combined.
Yeah, well, that's why during the Correspondents' Dinner, when he said, "You have a drink with Mitch McConnell," it was wasn't just a joke; it was just real. So yeah, McCarthy after the meeting said, "Good first meeting, no agreements, no promises. We'll continue the conversation." He also did dismiss the proposal floated by some, like Joe Manchin, for a commission to recommend cuts, to punt the whole thing, which doesn't seem like a good sign.
Yeah, it seems like McCarthy's first instinct in all cases is to paint himself into a corner. In all seriousness, like in a high stakes negotiation like this, McCarthy needs to leave himself an off ramp because the White House is not going to give him what he wants. The Senate is not going to give him what he wants. And if he wants to keep his job, he has to maintain some sort of fig leaf or fully capitulate. And a toothless commission is a fig leaf. It's barely a fig leaf, but it's a fig leaf. Yeah, it's an exit ramp, but he
just drove right past it.
Burned that bridge behind him.
Why do you think the White House released a memo on Tuesday that said Biden would ask those questions? What were they trying to achieve?
These meetings are always this absurd PR exercise where they go in, the leaders go in, the president, the congressional leaders go in the room. Maybe there's staff, maybe there's not. As soon as it's over, everyone races. Like you've been here. The staff waits outside the Oval Office for the second Kevin McCarthy's gone. I'm sure the White House staff ran in there. They got the download from Biden, and they're on the phone with reporters trying to spin what happened on background.
Yeah.
Kevin McCarthy just goes directly to the frost to his Nixon. Jake Sherman and tells him exactly what happened. So I don't even mean that as an insult. I don't even know what it really means, but but that is how he speaks to America, is through Jake Sherman.
At least he's talking to someone.
Yeah, and so what the White House was really doing, and it warms my heart as a geriatric former communications professional that the memo trick still works. You put out a memo, you set the stakes for the meeting, and everyone writes about it. And it gives you your chance to frame the meeting before you go in, and then you frame it coming out. So it worked. It was smart. I'm sure he asked those 2 questions. We know that McCarthy did not answer them. It forced McCarthy to have to answer those questions when he did the stakeout afterwards.
To Jake Sherman.
Yes, to Jake Sherman and to the White House press
and then to the stakeout, yeah. No, it seems like the Republican message is, why won't the president negotiate? And the president's message is, why are you willing to plunge the country into recession unless you get to gut healthcare, retirement, all the other things? And I think the White House in that memo is also using Mitch, McConnell, Trump, other Republicans, saying that we should never default, to try to isolate House Republicans, which is why you saw Mitch today giving Kevin we got your back.
I mean, it's also worth remembering that House Republicans, Kevin McCarthy included, voted to give Donald Trump a clean debt ceiling 3 times as deficits were going up, debt was going up. It's very nakedly partisan. Not that we should be surprised by that, but that's the reality.
And I think the White House also wanted to make sure everyone knows that Republicans are playing this game where they're not specifying what they want to cut, because they know that reducing debt and deficits is popular in the abstract. But as soon as you detail what you want to cut, it's usually not that popular.
Right. Well, they also can't agree on anything.
Yeah, well, there's that. There's that. Well, we're going to get to that in a second. You wrote a message box about how Biden is right to not negotiate on the debt ceiling, though you made the point that there's going to be a lot of political pressure to do so, including from some Democrats. Already has been. Joe Manchin. Kyrsten Sinema's having dinner tonight, Wednesday night, with Kevin McCarthy. Nothing good can come from that, I'm sure. So all of this political pressure on Biden to negotiate is going to be tough for the guy whose brand, as you wrote, is unity and working with Republicans. How does he handle that? It's you can see him handling it now as we get closer to the deadline. You could see a lot of pearl clutching in D.C.
There will be tremendous pressure on Biden, in part because
the green rooms will be up in arms.
But it's not just that Biden's brand is being able to work with people. He's very proud of the bipartisan accomplishments he had in his first 2 years. But it's also that everyone knows that he is the adult. He is a serious person who cares about the country. Kevin McCarthy is not a serious person. Nope, we're not really positive what he cares about other than his own job. And so when people start panicking, they're going to turn to Biden and say, you got to do something, because we cannot let the fate of the economy be in these people's hands. And so there's going to be that pressure on Biden. So here's what I think Biden should do. And the way they've handled this meeting suggests this is exactly what they're going to do, which is make the point that you are more than happy to negotiate with Republicans over the 2023 budget, over the funding of the government. We're going to have to pass a bill in September to fund the government. That is where these budget negotiations traditionally happen. That is what the country said they wanted when they gave Republicans this narrow majority, was there would be some conversation between the Republican House, Democratic Senate, Democratic President, how you fund the government. But you will not have those conversations with a gun pointed to the head of the U.S. economy. Pass the debt limit, do your job, and you're going to have to do it early in the summer, and then we will sit down, we will have meetings, we'll have as many meetings as you want.
Negotiate anytime, anywhere, willing to compromise, willing to listen, talk about, all that stuff.
And then the second part of this is that what Biden is going to have to do, and the State of the Union next week is the first best opportunity to do that, is remind the country and educate the country about what the debt limit is. That it has nothing to do with spending to come. I know.
As a former speechwriter, I just had a chill down my spine.
You had to do this in two State of the Unions.
Thinking about Porvenai in the section where you get to educate the public about something.
But this it's not even really the public per se. You also have to remind the people talking about politics, people writing about politics. You have to fill. This is going to be these budget battles, these debt limit battles, these government shutdown battles are PR battles. They're information warfare, and you're going to have to fill the space, and you're going to have the biggest stage of anyone on Tuesday. I think you got to use that.
And I also think that, eventually when the Republicans put out a budget, like once they detail the cuts, then the conversation and the debate is about the cuts, not necessarily the abstract principle of negotiation. we'll get back to the negotiation as we get closer to the debt limit, but having the budget out there, having the Republican budget out there, I think is going to help the whole thing too.
I mean, there is another point here that I don't know that Biden should make this point himself, but people around Biden can make it, is who are you negotiating with and about what? Like, as we said, they have no idea what they want. They can't agree on what they want. And even if we were to stipulate for a second that Kevin McCarthy is a serious, substantive person with ideological principles and policy preferences,
which you have made clear you do not.
I do not believe
subscribe
that.
to.
And I don't think anyone believes that. Even if you could cut a deal with Biden, if Biden and McCarthy could come together and cut a deal, there is zero chance McCarthy could deliver that deal. He does not have the power to do it. There is no, the Venn diagram of something that Joe Biden is going to sign off on and the Freedom Caucus is going to agree with are two circles that will never touch.
And I think the White House smartly wants to make sure America knows that.
Yes.
Because I think what McCarthy's trying to do is if McCarthy can get some kind of a deal with Biden, then he doesn't need all the crazy Freedom Caucus members to get on board with the deal. He can get a deal with Democrats and Republicans and everyone agrees, stuff like that. So of course he wants a deal with Biden.
Yeah, but
because that's his only out.
He hasn't, I don't want to, this is going to be alarming to you.
Oh.
He has not thought this through because
if he does that, then he loses his
Chip
job.
Roy or any of the Freedom Caucus will say he violated their deal and can do a motion to vacate and he loses his job.
Well, let's talk about the, getting agreement within the Republican caucus then. What can actually pass the House?
Nothing.
What kind of a budget could at least all the members or, enough members to have a majority in the House of the Republican caucus agree on? What is the plan? I mean, McCarthy told Punch Bowl that he basically wants to cap spending at 2022 levels. Doesn't seem like that. Well, and Biden, first of all, wouldn't agree to that. A, because he's not negotiating over the debt ceiling, but B, that would be a drastic cut in a lot of programs. But I don't think that cut would not be nearly enough for the Freedom Caucus. Yeah,
and it's too much for other members of the Republican caucus because that's also a cut in military spending. And the chairs of the Armed Services Committee and the Appropriations Committee that fund the military do not want that. They, in fact, think we should increase military spending. The Senate Republicans think we should increase military spending. There is nothing Republicans could agree on that could pass. That is the problem.
It does seem, though, with the crazy right-wingers in the Republican caucus these days, what they care most about is cutting all the funding for wokeism, as we made a joke about. Yeah. But it feels like they care about the culture stuff so much more than they care about really cutting the budget down to the bone, that I do wonder if some of these crazy right-wing yahoos will sort of, take a spending cut and be okay with it at the end of the day. I wonder if it'll make the negotiation easier.
Well, hopefully there will not be a negotiation.
Right. Whatever. Like you said, there's got to be some kind of, pick your metaphor, fig leaf, exit ramp, whatever.
Well, there wasn't
fake thing.
There wasn't in 2013. They just folded. That is the ultimate test here is, can you make them capitulate? And if if Kevin McCarthy capitulates, he probably loses his job. And that is why this is quite dangerous. And in previous times, what eventually happened was people started to freak out. The markets tanked. The big businesses that fund the Republican Party go to Mitch McConnell and they say, fix this. And then Mitch McConnell gets in a room with Chuck Schumer and when he was Vice President Biden, someone at the White House, and they cut a deal on something that is essentially a clean debt limit. And then they go home. They pass it and they go home. And they throw that hot potato to Kevin McCarthy and say, you pass it. And this is the one positive sign we have now that we did not have in previous ones, is that Kevin McCarthy's majority is so small that if he is willing to let that hit the floor, it is very easy to get the votes for it because you get all the Democrats, you only need a small handful of Republicans. In 2011, if you remember, we thought we were going to default because the House majority was sizable enough that we didn't think Kevin McCarthy could deliver we did not think John Boehner could deliver the 30 votes we needed to go with the Democrats to get to 218. Here, you can easily, I think, find the 6 that you're going to need to get there, but it requires him to put it on the floor, and putting on the floor could cause him to lose his job.
So the real question is probably not what Kevin McCarthy can get done, but what Mitch McConnell can pass.
Yeah, and McConnell's situation is more complicated now than it's been in the past. He has more.
Because there was 24 Republican senators who basically said they're not raising the debt ceiling They wrote a letter, clean debt ceiling, and then they also asked for cuts equal to the amount you raise the debt ceiling, which is crazy.
That's the Boehner rule from 2011. Dollar of cuts for dollar of debt limit raising.
Which would just be way too much. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but I guess McConnell can try to get some kind of portion of his caucus to go.
Here's the thing I would say, that if I were speaking to the ad sales department at Crooked, I would start calling some gold companies.
Well, okay. We'll be right back, I know. So Kevin's had a lot of problems managing the 5-seat majority that he made himself too weak to lead. There's the debt limit. They've only been able to pass half of the nearly dozen pointless message bills that they said they'd pass in the first 2 weeks. They can't even get an agreement on message bills to pass. It looks like they'll just eke out a win on voters' top priority of kicking Ilhan Omar off the House Foreign Relations Committee. They almost didn't get that done. Though that comes just after one of their own members lost his committee assignments because he may go down as the biggest pathological liar ever to serve in a place that was built on bullshit. George Santos resigned from his committees after a meeting where our Kevin reportedly leaned on him to do so. What do you think changed since McCarthy defended his decision to put Santos on these committees?
I think Kevin McCarthy was having a really hard time explaining to his members why they had to vote to kick Ilhan Omar off her committee while George Santos got to be on his. It's a very uncomfortable conversation that is really hard to defend publicly, and no one cares who's on what. Kevin McCarthy doesn't need his vote to get something through the small business subcommittee. He needs George Santos' vote to stay speaker. So as long as he gets to stay in the House, I think Kevin McCarthy is happy.
He's also now under more investigations than days he spent in Congress. I mean,
these people are all backing Donald Trump for president. He's under more investigations than George Santos, in more jurisdictions at least.
Yeah, that is true. Well, today we learned that FBI agents are investigating the GoFundMe scheme where he allegedly stole money from a disabled veteran who was trying to raise money to help his dying service dog. So that's the latest investigation. One prosecutor told Politico that that could be a way to bring a quick indictment because that's an easy one. You don't want to be stealing money from a disabled veteran who's trying to save his dying dog. And so maybe they indict him with that while they investigate the bigger crimes. But you were saying, you think maybe if he's indicted, that he still stays in Congress?
No, there were at least one, and I think two members of Congress, Republican members of Congress, who were indicted and then reelected in 2018. And then eventually left Congress in 2019 when they were convicted of crimes.
It's dark shit.
No, I do not think the indictment would affect. He has to decide to resign. Why would he? He's getting a salary from Congress right now, paid by us. Why?
Right, just because he's indicted, why would he? Yeah, was he worried about his reputation?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he's got to keep buying those fake glasses to wear.
Does he have a moral core?
And Kevin McCarthy can't force him out because Democrats would almost certainly win the special election for George Santos' seat,
and then
reducing the majority by 1.
4. Yeah, so you got to go with Santos. All right, let's talk about the most important race of 2023 that you all might not know about. It's a state Supreme Court race in Wisconsin that will determine whether abortion is outlawed and whether Republicans are allowed to maintain a gerrymander that has essentially turned Wisconsin into a one-party state where even the Democratic governor, Tony Evers, has very little power. But now, the conservative chief justice on the court is retiring, and if a progressive wins the race to replace her, the court will finally have a progressive majority that will likely rule abortion is legal and that the maps are not. The actual thing, there's a very old law outlawing abortion that now has gone into effect because Roe went down. And then, of course, the gerrymandered maps are just awful. What else is at stake in this race? Anything else? And maybe you can talk about some of the unique challenges facing the progressive candidates in this race.
I don't want to overstate the importance of a state Supreme Court special election, but the future the future of democracy could be on the line. I mean, the state Supreme Court will hear in the 2024 election a series of challenges to voting procedures, to where drop boxes can be, to attempted voter purges and all these things. And the Wisconsin Supreme Court, under its conservative leadership in past elections, has been very favorable to voter suppression laws and legal efforts to keep people from voting or make it harder to vote. So having a progressive court majority who believes in the right to vote would make a gigantic difference in 2024. Who knows what is going to happen in terms of challenges to contest the election in Wisconsin, alternate slates of electors, all sorts of things could happen. Those things are all going to be handled by the state Supreme Court. We should not overstate the importance of the maps. Wisconsin say the Democrats won in 2022, 2020, 2018, a Senate race in 2016. Every other election, Republicans have like 68% of the House seats in what is clearly a 50-50 state.
Yeah.
I mean, it is wild what would happen there. And it would affect the writing new maps would create more seats potentially for Democrats to have a shot in, both in the state legislature and in congressional. Be a huge difference. This is incredibly important. What is challenging about it is it's a special election. Republicans have been very good at special elections in Wisconsin over the course of history. They defended the recall against Scott Walker back in 2011, I think that was, or early 2012. And this is a nonpartisan primary. So you have in it two progressives.
Janet Protasewicz and Everett Mitchell.
And two conservatives.
Dan Kelly is a far-right activist who says Clarence Thomas is his hero. And Jennifer Doro, who called the Supreme Court ruling that struck down laws criminalizing sex between men as a, quote, prime example of judicial activism at its worst. So two fantastic
and
candidates.
Jennifer Doro is relatively famous in the state because she was the presiding judge on a very high-profile murder case involving 6 deaths from a Christmas event last year. And because this is what is often called a jungle primary, top two make it to the special election. So you could be in a world where you have one progressive and one conservative, or you could be in a world where you have two conservatives.
Right.
And so it is very...
Or two progressives.
You could have two progressives. You absolutely could. But the danger for progressives is getting shut out in one of these because the vote splits or something like that. And so it is absolutely it's like I said, it's maybe the future of democracy was a slight bit of hyperbole on my part, but not really. But this is an incredibly important race. It's not often that you get a chance to, with one election, have such a dramatic impact on so many people's lives.
Also, forget about the rest of the country, just abortion access for millions of people who live in Wisconsin, and also democracy in Wisconsin. Because right now, again, Tony Evers, Democratic governor, just won his second term. Because there's a near supermajority, a Republican supermajority in the legislature, not only can he not get a lot of shit done, he can't even, he's trying to appoint people. They're not letting him appoint people. They've pulled all kinds of shenanigans to basically make him a governor who can do very little on his own.
I mean,
not even staff his administration.
Wisconsin, along with North Carolina, are the models of Republican authoritarianism. It is the playbook. As soon as Tony Evers won in 2018, the then outgoing governor and the legislature took a bunch of his powers away. They did the same thing in North Carolina under Roy Cooper.
Yeah.
And if you want to be able to get those back to allow the people, Tony Evers, to do for the people of Wisconsin what they elected him to do twice, we have to win this race.
And if we don't win this race, the next chance to tip the balance of the court is until 2026. So these are
10-year terms, people.
Yeah. Yeah. So the primary is February 21st, and then the special is April 4th. So those are the dates. If you want to help, if you want to donate, so the Wisconsin Democratic Party, we should say, is not taking sides between candidates and between the two progressive candidates, but you can donate to help turn out the vote in Wisconsin, because I imagine that, this is going to be an incredibly expensive race. I mean, a lot of money on both sides of this race, but the right's going to pour in a ton of money, and getting people to care and to turn out in an off-year election. It's also an off-month election in April. That's tough. So if you go to votesave.us/Wisconsin, votesave.us/Wisconsin, and donate, that'll go a long way. And we will continue to update you here at Crooked about how you can help in this election. Pod Save America is brought to you by Stamps.com. The year goes by pretty fast, especially if you're a business owner.
I don't think it goes faster for them. They don't have some special year passing privilege.
Yeah, I think time passes the same for all of us.
Now I'm supposed to
Unless
segue
that's
into
not
going
true.
the speed of
That's famously
light.
not true. It's
I'm
actually-
gravity related.
I'm now about to segue into talking about the importance of planning early to make the most of your time.
Yeah.
Segue. 2023 is already well underway, so don't wait any longer to level up your small business and set your year up for success. Get ahead of the competition by using Stamps.com to mail and ship. Stamps.com lets you print your own postage and shipping labels right from your home or office.
Here I am still writing 2022 on my stamps.
That's okay. Stamps.com has postage rates you literally can't find anywhere else, like up to 84% off USPS and UPS. For 25 years, Stamps.com has been indispensable for over 1 million businesses. And if you sell products online, Stamps.com seamlessly connects with every major marketplace and shopping cart. Use Stamps.com to print postage wherever you do business. That's why we've used Stamps.com since our early days here at Crooked Media. Set your business up for success when you get started with Stamps.com today. Sign up with promo code Crooked for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the page, and enter the code Crooked. Pod Save America is brought to you by Keeps. 2 out of 3 men will experience some form of hair loss by the time they're 35. Keeps can help. Keeps offers a simple, affordable, and stress-free way to keep your hair. They got expert-recommended hair loss treatments, personalized treatment plans that are recommended by a licensed medical provider and delivered straight to your door. With Keeps, you can get quality, expert care without ever visiting a doctor's office or pharmacy. Easily subscribe to Keeps and get refill reminders so you'll never run low on the products you need to take care of your hair. They get 24/7 care and support. They got a network of expert medical advisors, prescribers, and care specialists to support you in making your hair goals a reality. Hair goals. Yeah, the goals for this is to have hair. What other hair goals are
Your
there?
hair goal is hair.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. That's right.
Each treatment plan comes with a full year of unlimited messaging, so you can connect with your medical provider about anything
I
anytime.
thought it was like PR messaging.
me too. I was
man,
like,
you look fantastic.
what's your messaging like? Oh, no, it's growing in.
Yeah.
Right, no.
I want to make the hair the center of my priorities.
Low-cost treatment plans are affordable, typically half the cost of pharmacy prices. Whether you're looking to prevent hair loss, stimulate hair growth, or just take better care of the hair you have, Keeps has you covered. Remember, prevention is key. Treatments can take 4 to 6 months to see results. So, act fast. Ladies, fellas, and everyone in between, if you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/crooked to receive your first month of treatment for free. That's keeps.com/crooked to get your first month free. keeps.com/crooked. Pod Save America is brought to you by Factor.
The O'Reilly factor. No?
No, not that one. Not that one,
sorry.
Tommy. This new year, you've got new goals, and Factor is here to help you achieve each and every one of them. Fuel up fast with ready-to-eat, nutritious meals delivered straight to your door.
Or like the O'Smiley factor because they're so delicious.
Oh, God. Leaving you time and energy. I don't think they want that advertising in here. Leaving you
It's
time
happening.
and energy to tackle everything on your to-do list. Get America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit and start saving time, eating well, and living your best year yet. Too busy to cook? With Factor, skip the trip to the grocery store and skip the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up too. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. So all you have to do is heat and enjoy. And it's way cheaper than takeout with 34 chef-prepared, dietitian-approved weekly options. There's always something new to try. They also have keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and protein plus options on the menu each week. Lovett and I have been Factor boys.
Yeah, we're a couple factor boys.
Couple Factor boys. They're
Therapy
delicious.
by day, factor by night.
You got to factor in how delicious.
Wash down the therapy with
they
with a
taste.
Factor meal. Yeah, I love them. They're
The
great.
only way I cook.
And they're so fast.
So
fast,
easy.
but the food is delicious.
And it's all structured so that like while you're making the one thing, the other thing is cooking, but there is enough time. So you don't end up like Mrs. Doubtfire, you know, with all those pots going.
That's yeah. I
With
don't want
the
that.
cake on your face.
Yeah.
The drive-by fruiting.
Sure. Those are other parts of that film that you're correct.
Great. Fantastic movie.
Anyway, Factor is delicious. Head to factormeals.com/PSA50 and use code PSA50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code PSA50 at factormeals.com/PSA50 to get 50% off your first box. Okay. One follow-up to our conversation on Tuesday's show about Don versus Ron, Battle of the Florida Men. Our friends at The Bulwark conducted a Republican primary poll with Republican pollster Whit Ayers, who described the findings of their poll this way. Quote, Donald Trump has slipped to his lowest point since he emerged on the political scene almost 8 years ago. He remains a formidable force, to be sure, with a lock on approximately 30% of the likely Republican primary and caucus voters nationally. But a majority of the GOP is ready to move on. The poll shows DeSantis beating Trump in a head-to-head matchup by 52-30. Whew. But also, in a 10-candidate field, DeSantis beats Trump 39%, Trump gets 28%, and everyone else is in single digits. Now, what do you think this poll shows? Does it show that Trump remains a formidable force with a lock on only 30% of the vote when he still can't lead a 10-candidate field? Or what? What do you think?
To answer that question, it's important for people to understand how Republican primaries work.
Mm-hmm.
As we all remember from we talked about this incessantly in 2020, you get the nomination of your party by reaching a certain number of delegates, the majority of delegates awarded. In the Democratic primary process, delegates are awarded proportionally by congressional district. So if you have 30% of the vote in a primary, essentially the most delegates you can win is 30%. Oftentimes you get less because of how your vote is geographically dispersed among congressional districts. Republican primary contests are mostly winner take all or winner take most. So in most cases, if Donald Trump gets 30% of the vote, and that's more than anyone else got, he will get 100% of the delegates. That is exactly how he won in 2016. And I think what is confusing to people here is, well, he has only 30%. He's even losing in a 10-candidate field. Because you guys talked a lot on Tuesday about how the more people get in the race, the easier it is for Trump to win, because he probably, the polling right now suggests he would lose it pretty easily, a 1-on-1 to DeSantis, and maybe a 1-on-3. But what I think the mistake we're making with this poll is, what is clear from this poll, whether it's the 1-on-1, whether it's the Trump's approval rating, whether it's the 1-on-9 other candidates, is there is a very strong majority of Republican voters who would prefer a generic Republican over Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And in this poll, all the other 9 people are pretty close to generic Republicans. And that changes as voters learn more about them. Ron Santis is the generic non-Trump Trump. Like, people they know enough about him to know he's Trump without the baggage. Like, that's, I think, if you did like a word recall with a lot of Republican voters, that's what they would say, even if they know nothing else about him. And how are people going to feel when that 9th slot is not just a random Republican you know nothing about? It's Mike Pompeo. Would you prefer Mike Pompeo or Donald Trump? Maybe you prefer Donald Trump. You don't really know. And so I think that this poll tells us what I think you and I talked about a couple weeks ago, which is that Donald Trump remains a vulnerable frontrunner for the Republican nomination.
Yeah, there's a lot of comparisons to like what happened in 2016, where obviously the field sort of split the vote, and then Trump won with around 30% in some of these early primaries, at least before he got to Nevada. But there was no one like Ron DeSantis in 2016. And the other candidates, no one was as strong as he is right now. Not Jeb, not all these other. I mean, I think on a number of in a number of areas, right? There's polling, there's state polling, there's money, there's like relationship with the right-wing media, right? There's like all of these different factors. I think Ron DeSantis has strengths and again, we have not seen him on the national stage. We have not seen him in a debate with Trump take a punch. So for sure, all of this, these big caveats here. But I think that I would argue that DeSantis on a number of fronts is well ahead of anyone else was in 2015 running against Donald Trump.
I think that is correct, in part because in 2015, Donald Trump was running in one primary, all the other candidates were running in a different one. Donald Trump won because he was running the primary the voters were in. Mm-hmm. The other ones I don't know what primary they were in, but I think it was taking place at CNN. And so everyone knows the deal now. They know what the voters want. They know they want a lot of what Trump has to offer, and they are competing on his territory. And the other thing, it's not just that they split the vote in 2016. It's that they all made a calculation that Trump would fall under his own weight. So the goal was to become the only other person in the race besides Trump. And so they didn't attack Trump. They attacked each other. Jeb Bush tried to take out Marco Rubio. Chris Christie tried to take out Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio tried to take out himself. And I would imagine they have somewhat learned some lessons from that. So if they're going to do this, they're going to have to try to take Trump on. Maybe DeSantis won't do that for all the reasons you suggest. He has a little bit of, he's not going to need to do that as early as others, but the strategies are going to impact this as well. Like, what slice of the electorate are they going for? Are they going to try to separate Trump from some voters? What states are they going to prioritize?
It also depends on how they take on Trump. This poll also shows that there is plenty of goodwill for Trump, to the extent that these voters don't want Trump. It's not because they were upset about the insurrection. It's because they don't think he can win, right? And so it's electability. And I think that DeSantis the other day sort of hit back at Trump, but in a very oblique sort of way, which is, I think, what you'll see from him going forward for a couple months at least, where he said, well, I won re-election and when you win re-election by as much as I did, and he's going to keep talking about how he won re-election. And guess who didn't win re-election?
I mean, it is just so, like, sure, that's probably the right thing to do right now since he's not an announced candidate for president, doesn't have the infrastructure to fight back necessarily, but it's just so funny that Trump basically just walks to the back of his flight, Trust reporter goes, Ron DeSantis is a disloyal loser who lied about COVID. And then DeSantis is like, well, I won re-election.
But the way that the media writes this up is like, DeSantis hits back at Trump. Like, a little goes a long way, as we know,
sure.
right?
For
like,
sure.
you make sort of an indirect attack at a candidate in the press. Oh, you attacks candidate, trades barbs, you know? So you don't need to do much to sort of get your message across. But I also think, like, I get why DeSantis doesn't have much of a choice because, like I said, these voters like Trump. So he can't say Donald Trump's an asshole. He's going to have to just be like, do you want a winner or what? I'm a winner. He's not, you know?
Yeah.
And at some point, he'll go from just I'm a winner and, like, wink, wink, he's not, to I'm a winner, he's not.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. We have a long way to go.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what the Republican primary calendar is going to be like and how the changes to the Democratic one theoretically could impact it. But we're basically a year. I think next Tuesday necessarily will probably be the New Hampshire primary. About a year. We're basically 12 to 13 months from the first contest.
A few other things stood out at me in this poll. DeSantis's favorability is 73-11. That is and that's also, the name ID is very high. For someone who is, I mean, you know, he's governor of Florida and being talked about, but like it's pretty high name recognition. There's a lot of people who like him. The next highest favorability is Trump at 68-29, and the next person after that is Mike Pence of Hang Mike Pence fame, 61-29.
As it turns out, the part of the Republican Party that wants to murder Mike Pence, smaller than we thought.
Yeah, it's about 29%. And then everyone else they tested, the Nikki Haley's, I don't think they even tested Mike Pompeo, but Nikki Haley, Youngkin, all the rest, they were all under 50% favorability. And
which is all name ID.
Name ID. And most of them didn't have the name ID, which is, again, what, you know, DeSantis has and a lot of the rest of them don't. I also thought it was interesting that they asked people, they gave people an option, do you support Trump's policy goals and behavior? Do you support his policy goals but not his behavior? And then do you support neither? And then supporting the policy goals and his behavior was only 24%. Policy goals but not his behavior, 69%. Nice. And then anything else stand out to you?
Well, there was this a lot of attention was paid to this in the Bulwark write-up of it, which is that 28%, I think it is. The 28% of Republican voters are Trump before party, and that they said they would support Trump if he were to run as a third party candidate.
Wow. How likely do you think either outcome is? that many people will go, that he'll run as a third party candidate if he loses, or that that many Republicans go vote for him?
I'm not going to make a prediction here, John. I will not do that.
Almost gotcha.
I almost did. I almost did.
Almost tricked you.
But I just find it highly unlikely that if Trump were to lose, that he would then turn around and say, you know what, I'm into more work. So I'm gonna spend more of my money. I'm gonna focus on ballot access, get some petitions signed, just to lose the presidency.
I'm gonna travel with Ron DeSantis to Unity, New Hampshire.
And if his goal is to sink the Republican nominee because he's pissed about it, there are much more efficient ways for Donald Trump to do that than run for president. On
You're saying all the work. I thought you meant the work of endorsing.
No. I think just running for president on a third party candidate is very hard. It takes a lot of work. I don't think he's going to do that.
He can just burn it down in an easier way.
He can absolutely burn it out. And then
just a couple phone calls.
I would say, let's say he even did that. I think there is close to zero chance that nearly 30% of Republican voters are like, you know what?
I'm out.
Let's just reelect Joe Biden.
Knowing that, Joe Biden would win.
But that's what the 28% number. This is ultimately what kind of the implicit strongest argument Trump has is, which is if you don't give me the nomination, maybe it won't be 28%, maybe it's 4%. Yeah. If 4% of people stay home,
taking hostages,
then you're toast. If 2% of people stay home, you are toast.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll make that argument explicitly by the end of this primary.
Oh, absolutely.
If not tomorrow.
Yes. Someone get on Truth Social right now.
Now, do you think this poll is worthless since it doesn't account for the surge in momentum that will surely follow Nikki Haley's announcement that she's running, which is supposed to happen February 15th?
I feel like this question is not on the level.
I will say, again, could be proven wrong. All of the other people not named Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, why are you in the race? Why are you in the race? It's not happening for you. I feel so sure about that.
That's
a prediction.
Oh, man. We've been doing this thing for 6 years.
Like fucking Mike Pompeo and his Angry Inch book or whatever the fuck it's called. I know Tommy and Ben covered this a lot, but like, I don't know what that guy's doing.
You know what
else? I'm sorry. Give me a Glenn Youngkin, a Brian Kemp. I still don't think they have much of a chance, but I could have that argument. I could hear that argument. Nikki Haley, I don't think so.
I mean,
Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence? No.
I mean, shockingly popular Mike Pence.
Shockingly popular.
The reason they're running is not to win; it's to be famous. It's honestly
which is a good strategy. That's how you be famous, and to get a deal.
Podcast. What they want is a podcast. That is, you run for president.
Hey, we didn't have to run for president.
we got in early. You want to launch a podcast in 2025? Get your ass in New Hampshire.
I'm sure they're also competing to be. We'll see how, if any of them attack Trump, they want to be on the VP list.
Yeah, maybe. Sure. I mean,
and maybe that's it too. But you're right. It's wanting to be famous.
Yeah,
and they're probably setting that he's going to die someday. So 2028, like at some point, they want to raise their national profile, sell more books. It's ridiculous. Okay, when we come back, Elijah will be here for an in-person round of Take Appreciator. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. When you're at your best, you can do great things, but sometimes life gets you bogged down, and you may feel overwhelmed or like you're not showing up the way that you want to. Working with a therapist can help you get closer to the best version of you, and when you feel empowered, you're more prepared to take on everything life throws at you. When do you guys feel like your best self? For me, exercise.
Yeah,
sleep,
exercise,
and
getting
therapy.
enough sleep and therapy. Yeah, those are the three.
Those are good things.
If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp's a great option. It's convenient, flexible, affordable, and entirely online, just like us.
Is it too online?
I'm not that flexible. I'm not that flexible.
Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And
not that affordable either.
And switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. You're not actually that convenient either. Talk about the benefits of therapy. I think you've heard us talk about it many times. Lovett's a living, breathing example.
You know how much worse I was before therapy? Imagine this without therapy. Imagine if I didn't have an hour a week to talk about myself. What would I do?
Or if you didn't have a podcast.
Oh, yeah, and the therapy. That's funny.
If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit BetterHelp.com/PSA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/PSA. Pod Save America is brought to you by Netflix's new comedy, You People. Your partner meeting your parents can be nerve-wracking. In Netflix's new comedy, You People, things get downright uncomfortable. This film follows Ezra, played by Jonah Hill, and Amira, played by Lauren London, as they navigate the treacherous waters that link family and romance. If they want to make it to the altar, they have to first get past their families. Ezra's pseudo-woke parents, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus and David Duchovny, and Amira's unyielding and concerned parents, played by Eddie Murphy and Nia Long. You People is a star-packed clash of culture and comedy written by Jonah Hill and Kenya Barris and directed by Kenya Barris. You People is rated R and is now playing only on Netflix. Okay, we're back. Elijah's here in person. Dan's here in person. What a day. What a day.
So great to be here with you guys.
It's great to have you hosting Take Appreciator here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, when I found out I was doing it today, the takes it seemed like they were going to be a little thin today, but the discourse always delivers.
You dug deep?
Yeah, you got to get deep.
Yeah.
You got to go extra deep in the take mine.
So,
all right, what do you got for us?
Before we get started, I'll share the rules. The producers have seen these takes. John and Dan have not. They'll react and rate them on a scale of 1 to 4 politicos, with 4 being the worst. We got some audience feedback on the segment.
Wow.
So before we...
You've been in your mentions?
Yeah, I appreciate an engaged audience. They want us to guess the author after we talk about the take a little bit. We get sidetracked a little bit.
That's fair.
So, and we'll guess it before we do the Politico rating because, that contributes. But today, it's not really about authors. I don't think you're going to know them.
Well, I think that's a good note, because that means that the rating is based purely on the take and not about our preconceived notions about the person.
Yes.
I know I don't work in the ad sales department here, but another option, we're giving Politico all of this name ID for free. Do you think we should go pitch Semaphore?
Semaphore sponsor this.
You want to be 1 to 4 semaphores,
Puck, you want to up your numbers?
or it just be it's 1 to semaphore.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking that maybe we could keep the Politico rating, but then Semaphore sponsors the segment
Okay, that works too. Yeah.
because we're shitting on their competitor. Anyway, just a thought, GC. Just a thought.
Yeah. Consider it. Thank you to the audience, as always, for the feedback. Let's jump in. We're going to start with a piece from the New York Times titled, DeSantis takes on education establishment and builds his brand. This is a piece about Ron DeSantis attacking education in Florida. As governor, he's limiting teaching about LGBTQ and race issues. This piece specifically covers him mandating courses in Western civilization and eliminating diversity and equity programs. Now, what makes this particular piece so bad and so rare for Take Appreciators is that it's not opinion. This is straight reporting here. Here's a quote. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, as he positions himself for a run for president next year, has become an increasingly vocal culture warrior, vowing to take on liberal orthodoxy and its champions, whether they are Disney, on Martha's Vineyard, or in the state's public libraries. Guys, what do we think?
I will say this. Until you got to the phrase liberal orthodoxy, I was going to say it's a fair reading of what he is doing. But to call what he's going after in all of those institutions liberal orthodoxy is, I would say, not correct.
Did you stumble on this take because people were tweeting about it? Were they angry about this particular passage in the New York Times?
And especially the headline, building his brand.
I mean, that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
It is what he's doing. He's building his brand. I don't love it.
Yeah.
I take issue with the liberal orthodoxy, so I'll give it a Politico.
Just one?
Just one.
Same.
There you go.
I barely a 1 Politico.
The liberal orthodoxy on Martha's Vineyard can't get it at 1.5. That's fair. You guys want to take a guess at who wrote it? Again, straight reporting, so not our typical.
It's a news article in the New York Times.
Yes. 3 authors, so you get credit for getting any
tough.
one of them.
That's
So
tough.
we probably have an education reporter,
Who's
a
the
Florida reporter,
Oof.
and then whoever now sits at Jonathan Martin's desk.
Oh, Reed Epstein?
No, Reed Epstein.
Jeremy Peters.
Nope.
Ooh, those are two.
Do you think we're going to have heard of any of these people?
Let's see. Stephanie Saul, Patricia Motzi, and Trip Gabriel.
Oh, Trip Gabriel, we should have known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's
good reporter.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I feel like that's the exact kind of coverage that DeSantis wants. So.
Oh, it is. It is. But that's more a function of DeSantis picking mean culture war fights.
Yeah.
He's going to pick them. Someone's going to have to talk about him.
His brand will be built from them.
Yeah, not a good brand, but it's a brand.
Certainly. All right. Next up, we have a piece from the Washington Post titled, Real People Don't Care About George Santos. This piece is incredibly short. I was ready to go with it just because of the title, but then I got into it. It simply cites Google search trend data, noting that Kevin McCarthy, Ron DeSantis, and Donald Trump all get more Google searches than George Santos. Here's a quote. Santos's ethical struggles do matter, but the daily airing of Santos's latest insane fabrication is mostly a diversion for political junkies in Washington. Guys, what do we think?
Here's what makes me annoyed about this take is that there are the real people that do care about Santos are the people who he's representing in his district. 70-something% of whom
78%.
8% believe he should resign. So those people care, and those people are not the DC set. So I don't know why you would write this piece. It seems like a silly piece to write. 3 politicos.
This is just plug and play, cut and paste.
Lazy.
Typical lazy punditry.
Lazy punditry.
There's nothing easier to be like, Look, I know I'm here in Washington, but I visited America once. And I talked to the people, and they told me they didn't care about what you care about.
Also,
See you at Cafe Milano.
As we talked about today, like if the Republicans had a 30-seat majority, that's one thing. You know, they got a 5-seat majority. George Santos leaves. There's only 4 seats. It matters.
I do think we should use Google search data for more.
Yeah, no, I'm going to do
stuff.
it. Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, it's
Are you
great.
serious?
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting.
It is interesting. I mean, it helps us with our YouTube titles, but I thought that was some weak shit. I don't know.
I mean, look, I would prefer. I mean, like, there's fucking polling covered in glory these days.
That's true.
Yeah.
You guys want to guess?
Nate Silver over here.
I don't think you guys are going to guess the author. Should I just tell you?
Yeah.
David Byler.
Yeah. No. I don't.
Oh, I'm disappointed in David Byler. He's really good.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Well, no one's
It's
safe
like-
from
He's a
It's like-
political scientist.
It's like when Lovett went off on a take and gave it like a full playbook. He's like, that person's awful, and it was Ashley Parker.
the Biden
Remember when
Vogue
she was,
wedding.
Yeah, she was briefly canceled.
Oh yeah.
Well, take Appreciator comes for everyone eventually.
Yeah.
All right, should we move on? I'm
Let's do
excited
it.
about this one.
Okay.
It's a Washington Post Bloomberg collaboration.
Wow.
It's titled Republican Tax Proposals Aren't as Bonkers as They Sound. So this is a piece about the Fair Tax Act, which Kevin McCarthy agreed to bring to the floor for a vote if he got the speakership. For those of you who aren't familiar, the bill would abolish the IRS and it would replace all existing federal taxes with a flat, nationwide 30% sales tax on top of existing state and local rates. Here's a quote. Sure, the bill probably doesn't have much of a chance of passing, but it has some merit and is a good starting point for a discussion about tax reform. I'm so excited to hear y'all's thoughts on this thing, the Fair Tax Act. What do we think?
I mean, like Grover Norquist, of all people, the guy who's famous for saying that we should shrink government down to the size where you can drown it in a bathtub, like never met a tax cut he doesn't like. He told, I believe, Semaphore that this was a crazy idea and that this was a crazy idea for Republicans. So I'm trying to think of who is out there defending this. Is it a secret Democrat pretending to be a Republican?
Bloomberg guy writing on the Washington Post.
A Bloomberg guy writing on the Washington Post.
Like
Would we know?
like a regular Bloomberg columnist?
I'm not familiar with the regular Bloomberg columnist.
Nor am I, but I
unfortunately.
thought I would at least try to.
I've wandered around this office for years looking for a terminal. Never found one in here.
Yeah, I think a 30% national sales tax is a bad idea. I think most people would agree with that from all parties, all across the country.
Look, I think if there's an opportunity to make our tax system more regressive and make it so that people who have less money pay more in taxes, seems like a great fucking idea.
Yeah, I think this is I'm leaning towards a full playbook on this.
Do we have any more takes, or is this the last one?
I have a bonus one about Tom Brady because it's so newsy.
Okay,
Oh, boy.
all right. I'm gonna give this 3 playbooks.
Do you guys want to guess who wrote it?
No, now I don't want to.
Like not could Michael Bloomberg?
Carl Smith. Carl spelled with a K.
That's not a real person.
Yeah.
It's George Santos' campaign manager.
Who is Carl Smith? Just a columnist? Who is he?
I couldn't tell you, honestly.
Yeah.
But again,
Unbelievable.
Take Appreciator comes for everyone, whether you know him or not.
Carl
So-
Smith, David Byler, a bunch of random New York Times reporters just co-bylining a story.
You know who I hear was just cut this piece out of the newspaper and was waving it around? Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah.
He brought it. He
Wink.
brought it to the Biden meeting.
He brought it to the Biden meeting. Yeah, he's trying to push his 30% sales tax. That's what I'm going with.
Look, I'm not a political analyst. I just know takes, but it's just exciting to see Republicans come with like an actual affirmative piece of policy that they are like putting forward and just have it be completely insane. Like one of the most, something that even I can be like, that sounds crazy.
Yeah. No, it's a good one. Hope they put it in the budget.
Yeah,
They won't.
please do.
Hope they.
I don't think they're gonna have a budget.
You don't think they're
I
gonna
don't
have a
think
budget?
they have a budget. No,
Wow. Okay.
they don't. There's no like. They don't have to formally release one. They're not gonna pass
They
appropriations.
gave a date. They said they would do it a month after Biden. I mean, when have they? Imagine them not keeping their word.
It's weird.
All right, this
All
is
right,
the
what's
last
our Brady
one. Tom Brady retired yesterday morning. So in honor of that, we have this piece from Fox News titled, Tom Brady's retirement leaves a gentleman gap in the NFL. Great headline. Here's a quote. In a world of tarnished idols, of gossip, of shamelessness, Brady stands out as a true role model, not just because he won more Super Bowls and set more records than any other NFL athlete. Instead, it's because he does things the right way. Humility is a lost art in today's chest-pounding, follow me on Snapchat world. Guys, what do we think?
I wrote this take. No notes.
Zero
take.
no politicos.
No politicos for me.
I would like to declare myself as a Tom Brady centrist. I don't have strong feelings one way or the other. Like when he was the underdog, late round, fifth round, sixth round pick, that was great. Later, Brady, when he was the greatest of all time, rooting for the underdogs, don't care that much.
Bucs era Brady, still.
The one thing I would say is that the last few years have not been colored in glory either, to reuse that phrase. And I think probably remaking himself as a crypto pitchman towards the end there was less ideal.
This is all the short-termism. Years from now, no one's going to remember the end.
Deflategate.
It's not okay. Yeah.
Kissing his son.
Oh, I'm sorry. He has showed affection to his family.
That's a lot of affection. For those who know.
Oh,
I was really torn because I thought there was a real chance that...
I'm going to see 80 for Brady this weekend for sure.
Are you really?
Yeah,
that's going to be your return to the movie theater?
The Boston guy.
I was torn because I thought if Brady did not retire, he would be a San Francisco 49er next year.
Exciting for you.
And I was raised as a Washington Commanders fan, which is it's not something I'm going to pass along to my children. So I thought if they wanted to become Niners fans, they could.
Speaking of being covered in glory.
Yeah, I mean, just the absolute worst. But now that's not going to be any sort of... That would be harder, more complicated, I think, if Brady was there. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. You got a Politico rating for it?
2. I think there is a subtext there that I think is kind of gross.
Which is?
It's just that it is the older white guy, stereotypical, he reminds a certain set of people of what they think NFL quarterbacks should be. And they very willfully ignore some other more complicated parts of his life, which he's more than welcome to have. He's a football player. In order to make a point that is essentially... It's a point about Brady, but it's really a point about the rest of the NFL that I think is unfair in a lot of ways.
And thanks for calling my take on this problematic.
Well, look, you're from Boston. You
get a pass. Phantoms.
Yeah, I give this take two Politicos. John's take full playbook.
Yeah, Cleveland fans got behind Deshaun Watson, so I mean, I guess you get a pass.
Yeah.
All right.
Great segment, Elijah. I think this segment went well.
Oh, good.
I know you're always wondering about that.
I was wondering about it.
Get the side text afterwards. You guys think is okay? Is it cool?
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today. Our one guest on today's show.
Great to be here.
It's great to have you here. Great to have you here, Dan. Everyone have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Exciting news. We just posted the first episode of our new political game show, Liberal Tears. Tears is spelled Tiers. You can't see that because this is a podcast. On the Pod Save America YouTube, in this episode, our very own Tommy Vietor and Brian Tyler Cohen draft the lies of George Santos from the absurd to the morally depraved as the lies about his past mount. Head over to the Pod Save America YouTube channel to see who wins this political draft. Liberal Tears, Dan.
Great title, but I will say this, Tommy Vietor. I know what you're doing.
Yeah,
I see you on my corner.
Dan is the biggest YouTube star at Crooked Media, and now Tommy's coming for him, so... We'll see what happens. Smash that subscribe button. Go check it out.
Pretty smart to bring
vote with your feet.
YouTube star Brian Tyler Cohen for the first episode.
Yeah, I brought in a ringer for that one.
Clever.
Yeah, that's
something
clever.
Dan has never done.
Not for the first episode. I had to build that thing from the ground up. Just you and me, Elijah. And you betrayed me for Tommy, your boss.